Hey, you, Nina here. You are officially listening to season 4, episode 2 of Triggered. Can we play with that? We're here in 2023, and a big part of January right now is celebrating sobriety in all of its forms. But on the podcast in particular, we're going to talk a lot about emotional sobriety. So today we have a very special guest, Kathleen Bossart, here to speak with us today. She's going to share a little bit about her adoption story. She's going to share a little bit about some of the triggers around that, in particular, abandonment. For anybody out there who knows, you're like, yes, that's my trigger, Nina. Abandonment, right? So human. We're going to be exploring that today. So if you know that this is one of your triggers or something that you'd like to explore, fantastic. We are going to get a little bit into, for those of you who are sober curious this month also, and that could be again on anything. We're going to explore emotional sobriety, but if you are struggling with alcohol, medication misuse, drugs, sex, codependency, food, right? Eating disorders, and so on and so forth. You see where I'm going with this. All of these things that we could explore sobriety with, and at its very core, emotional sobriety. So I digress. No más hablando for me right now, right? No más hablando, just so we're clear. I do have an actual accent there. We are now going to lean in, grab you a journal to, or a good friend, excuse me, to dialogue with what is going to come up for you in this episode as we seek to transform a hard conversation, right? Around abandonment, around adoption, around really giving yourself closure, especially when other people are not able to, right? So empowering the narratives around that. Go ahead and get whatever it is you need, because for now, this is what we're exploring. It's not going to be everything, but it is going to be at least one facet. So let's lean in, and you know that I am curious. Are you ready to play?
Welcome to Triggered. Can we play with that? You know that moment when your emotions ramp up in an instant, leaving you feeling helpless, frozen, or out of control? In that moment, you've been emotionally hijacked, the very definition of triggered. And I want to ask you, can we play with that? I'm Nina L. Garcia, drama therapist and empowerment coach of Houston Creative Arts Therapy. Join me as we discover ways to empower you and the people who mean the most to you to transform hard conversations into teachable moments. Triggered. Real playful. Real respectful. Real empowered.
All right, let's take a breath. So, welcome, Kathleen. Thank you so much for being here, being on the show today. You are going to share one of your moments, and then we're going to explore it with some psychoeducation bits and maybe even a challenge for people for the upcoming week to explore. But before we do any of that, I like to start by setting our intent. Yes, this is our consent to move forward in the show, knowing that it could get sticky, it could get uncomfortable, but we are very intentionally setting out to try to transform a hard conversation into a teachable moment. Do you consent to moving forward?
Yes, I consent.
Fantastic. So we're going to play, we're going to explore, but I want to pass the ball on over to you now. If you could share with us how you would describe yourself as a human being, any identities or roles, or fill in the blank, however you feel you would like to express and share yourself in this moment with the audience.
Of course. This is who I am. My name's Kathleen Bossart, and I am a very inspired individual. I am a sober individual,
Hey.
and yay! And I am also trying to share the story of my adoption to the world in film format. And I hope to do that by writing a script, making it very personable. And I think for me, who I am today has the past has defined me. I've been through a lot, and I'm a strong individual and an individual that wants to inspire others to this day. So, and help others along the way.
Fantastic. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit about that. Folks, hope you got this, right? We're going to be hearing an adoption story, a little bit about that. Also, can I just do the shout out for the sober facet of humanity as well? And I share this, Kathleen, you probably don't know this, but we're big time celebrating this month of sobriety, right? That part you probably know, dry January and all the things, but we're like big time celebrating in Houston. We're trying to put Houston on the map for sober scene. So just thank you for sharing that with us. So we can all celebrate this month. This is my shout out to you, audience members. If you're sober curious, no better month to try than this month. Of course, every month is a great month to try, just so we're clear, but you're going to get a lot of support in particular this month from a lot of other people who also may be sober curious. So thank you so much, Kathleen. Are we ready to continue?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So before you share your story, I like to do a little internal weather check-in. I think it's a great skill for us to have in general. And so if you were to check in, right, in this moment with your own internal weather, what would you say that scene looks like?
It's in between sunny and dark. I did witness someone who has passed away recently. I found out yesterday, so it's kind of dark there, but it also makes me grateful at where I'm at today, especially in sobriety in particular.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. We will be checking in again with your internal weather closer to the end of the episode after we've explored and played with some hard things. And also thank you for sharing that you even know what the darkness of your check-in was about, right? A lot of people share and they don't know. And so thank you for sharing. You have that recognition there. We can hold space for that. Okay. So as we move forward, I'm about to pass it over to you so that you can share your story in a nutshell so that we can explore it with you. But one of the other things that I like to do before we lean in is I like to say, if you were to title the moment that you're going to share with us, if it were like a movie or a chapter in a book, what would you title it? And your title was Abandonment No More. And so that is what I am curious about exploring is Abandonment No More would be the title of your moment. And the takeaway is you want to share the story. So I'm going to pass the ball on over to you so you can share your story in a nutshell, officially titled Abandonment No More.
So I basically was a drop call, meaning my birth mother went into the hospital and decided to give me up last minute. To an adoption agency called Blessed Trinity. To my parents to this day, Charlotte and Patrick Bossart, I still call them my parents. They were the ones that raised me. Charlotte worked for the adoption agency, Blessed Trinity, and they wanted to have a second daughter. So they decided, they decided to take me in and raise me and give me a life. And give me a chance at life. And I'm very indebted and grateful for them and for their example in front of me as parents that were loving, caring, and supportive. When I turned 17, I was willing and ready to meet my birth mom. I was right out of high school.
Wow. Okay.
And the agency, Blessed Trinity, decided to seek out my birth mother. So I met her, and it's actually a kind of funny story, but not. I was very nervous at the time, and I was very didn't know what to say, didn't know what to do necessarily when I met her. And I always had a picture of my birth mother growing up. And I always pull that out on occasion because as an adoptee, you always wonder, who do I look like? Where did I get my personality from? All these questions that go unanswered that you don't really have closure from, And so when I walked into the room, I had a bouquet of flowers and I was emotional. And sometimes I, had those moments of I didn't know how to feel or what to feel. And I walked in and I saw her and we locked eyes, and I was like, in my head, I was like, I look nothing like her. She has dark black hair, dark complexion. And I was like, man, I got to find my birth father now.
That's it. Oh, she doesn't look like me. Let's move on to the next parent.
Yes, because I wanted closure from that question of who I looks like and where I got my looks from, and part of me wanted to get to know my birth mother, and I did, I wanted to, but I also wanted that question of, where did I come from? Where did I come from? Where did I get my looks? And so I met my birth mother, and we had a unstable relationship here and there. She did struggle in trying to get sober on her end. And in 2019, she ended up passing away from the disease of addiction. And we didn't have the opportunity to necessarily have a relationship because of her lifestyle. Yeah. But my birth mom's mom eventually sought out Barry, which is my birth father. And lo and behold, she eventually found him. And it's a beautiful thing, that she found him. And it's a beautiful story because eventually those questions I had as an adoptee were answered for me. I was able to meet my birth father when I was around 32 years old. Mm-hmm. And the story goes is, I was basically, to him, he didn't know about me. I was a secret. And 32 years later, I met my birth father, and we sat down in a restaurant. My girlfriend Joey was there, joined me in support. And it was another situation where I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to act, or I was super nervous. But at the same time, I was super grateful for closure in my life. And he looked exactly like me. And one of the things that my birth father said is, he said, "Show me a picture of Kathleen." He said that to my birth mother's mom, who was seeking him out. And he said, "Oh my gosh, she has the Oliver eyes." He knew right then, right there, that I was his. And that was something that kickstarted a relationship for us. I go to Louisiana now, and it's come somewhat bittersweet for me because I learned my lineage. And as an adoptee, you always go into the doctor and do you have cancer in your history? Do you have this? Do you have that? And that would kind of trigger me because I didn't know the answers to that. Mm-hmm. And when I go up to my family out in Louisiana, I learned that my grandmother Rusty is where I got my freckles from, and just moments like that really, really give me closure and really comfort me. Yeah. And I will say this, not all adoption stories of meeting their birth mother or birth fathers can be a horror story. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I want to try to bring to light in this story and in this film that I'm proceeding to make, is that you can have a positive experience, mm-hmm. Despite others. And so I'm grateful for my adoption. I've come to accept that I was never abandoned. My birth mother was the hero to my story. And I'm grateful for that.
Kathleen, what feels in my chest, but what a line, this last line that you've left us with, right? That not all stories are horror stories, right? Not all meeting of the parents is a horror story, but that your mother wasn't the villain, she was the hero.
Yes. Yes, she was. Her selfless decision saved my life. And
selfless decision saved your life. That's powerful.
Yes, it sure did. And I'm grateful to this day. And I know she dealt with a lot of shame probably behind it, and maybe her disease. But I try to continue to live and make a living amends to her to this day. Mm-hmm. And I try to carry this message to other adoptees.
This message of of which in particular do you think this message to other adoptees, because I'm sitting over here as a witness to this story, right? To your testament. And I'm sitting with this sensation of this story of hope, this courageous story, right? Of daring to seek out, right? And those are just some of the things I'm sitting with when you share this story. And we know that there's somebody on the other line who has been adopted, who's considering adoption, who may be fostering right now, right? All the different players in this human game of life here. When you think about just the message that the core, there's so much to it over here for me. What is it that you want to get out to adoptees in particular? Since that's the one that you called out, adoptees in particular.
I want to create a message of hope that knowing that, you weren't abandoned. As an adoptee, you weren't abandoned. You were given a life, and I grew up for a long time thinking I was abandoned. That space of, she gave me up. She didn't want me. But like I said, that decision propelled me to have a better life. If I was given the life within her lifestyle, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. It would be totally different. Something bigger and better, despite her, had a plan for me, and that plan saved my life.
Absolutely. Kathleen, thank you so much for sharing.
Yes, you're welcome.
I'm feeling lots of feelings over here, and I want to keep holding space for your message and not explore my feelings. Okay. Which is a great message for everyone else out there. There's a time to listen. There's a time to explore. There's a time to share, right?
Yes.
And so I am gonna intentionally put some of my feelings to the side to the degree that I can, right? As a human being, some of there is a line that keeps coming back to me as you were sharing, right? This closure. I was looking for closure. And even when I saw my mother, I did not get that closure, right? Now, if I get anything wrong, Kathleen, I also want you to fix it, please. Right. But even when you saw, you didn't get that closure. And I couldn't help but think, when we say closure, is to some degree, is it that connection, that wanting to connect something that feels incomplete? And to some degree, is it about sort of finishing a piece of the life tapestry that is yours, finishing a section that might have been sort of like just a blank canvas, or felt like a blank canvas, and actually filling in a piece of it? Does this make sense?
Yes, it does. And I think going in the second part of filling in that canvas was it for me. Just trying to, like I said, the question, where do I come from? I would grow up and I would place, and I started soccer when I was 4, and this is in my script as well. I would try to identify the daughters and the parents, and I was like, I look nothing like my adoptive parents, just that piece of wanting to know where I came from, and wanting to know the lineage, and to try to connect that connection of, oh, I look like my parents. I never really had that closure, and that question answered growing up. But then I would come to realize later on, it was actually kind of funny, the familiarity aspect with my adopted parents. People would always say, oh, you look like your parents, Charlotte and Pat. And I'm like, well, I kind of went along with it. And then, someone in the back would be like, oh, wow, that's all weird, awkward. She's adopted, And it was actually funny. I'll share this. And my sister, that's biological to my adoptive parents.
Okay.
She always grew up, she was like, you came from an egg, Kathleen, and I would cry. And then,
you came from an egg? Did I hear that correctly?
Yes. And I believed it for a while. And then I was like, I'm someone different. there was always like, as an adoptee, I don't know when and where and the exact date I knew that I was adopted, but there was always that feeling of knowing I was,
Mhm.
My parents never really sat me down. I don't think. I just came to know it, came to know I was adopted. And I grew into that later on in life. And I drank, to be honest, I drank over abandonment issues. I drank over not necessarily being abandoned, but abandoning others as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
Thank you so much for bringing up this last bit that you just shared too. For so many people listening out there, audience, tag in. If you've tapped out, take your breath in and breathe yourself back in with us, because a big part of the work I do when I'm working with people, but of the human experience, then I don't think we talk about this enough, is how, because we are first lacking in emotional sobriety, that is how we end up not being sober in other ways, shapes, and forms. And what I mean by that is, for people who are like, emotional sobriety, what is that? Emotional sobriety is the ability to be emotionally flexible, to feel all your feelings without it causing dysfunction to you or somebody else in your life, right? So I can feel angry or sad or happy or disgust or fear, right? I can feel these things and they go through me and out of me. Whereas if I struggle with my emotional sobriety, and let's say anger is something that hijacks me, right? Or sadness, if I am so overwhelmed by sadness and I don't want to deal with that sadness anymore because it's too much, it's overwhelming. Sadness will say to me, it's just go get to drink, or, take a little bit more of the medication that you're prescribed, or here's some drugs you can have. And then you don't have to feel me as much. You don't have to deal with me as much right now. And it may start out as something small, but it grows and it gets bigger and it gets bigger. And for everyone listening out there, it may be alcohol for you. It may be food for you. It may be people, codependency, could be sex, could be animals. I mean, there are so many things that people, purchasing animals, just so we're clear, right? Acquiring many animals, right, is a thing. There's so many different ways that we see that emotional sobriety is being challenged with these addictive tendencies that people have. And it's different for everyone. The direction we head is different, but that we're not dealing with some kind of emotion is usually the case. And one of the things that Kathleen has already shared so courageously is abandonment was at the core. That was the emotional piece at the core of this abandonment, that it sounds like led to, I think alcohol was the bit for you. Correct any of us if I get it wrong, Kathleen, or if you're like, this is so off the wall.
No, you were right on point. Right on point.
I mean, one of the things that I'll invite people to do, and I mean, y'all listening to this episode, I'm wondering if Kathleen wants to challenge you to do something too. For me, the challenge and offering that I want to put on the table for y'all this upcoming week is, if you know that you are struggling with an emotion or struggling with a behavior or something else, right, that is outside of that, being able to redefine your relationship with that emotion, that emotional part, could change your world. Just being able to identify it, right? Kathleen is, again, so courageously identified it as it was abandonment, right? Abandonment was what I was struggling with. And then through her own work was able to redefine that relationship that Kathleen had with abandonment. Do we see how I'm looking at this here, right? It's a relationship that we have with these different parts of us. If we don't redefine them, right, they will hijack us. They will do what they think is necessary for us to survive. I'm gonna stop talking. I'm gonna roll the ball back to you, Kathleen.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, you have to accept that you're human, that you have to feel, and there is a solution out there. There's, to work on these things. I had to do a lot of talk therapy in the very beginning with other counselors, just to get out my feelings, to express my feelings, because I would shove them so deep down inside of me, that they were skeletons in the dark for me. I didn't want to talk about it at one point in my life, but I drowned myself in all those feelings with alcohol. And I have to come to realize, to this day, that my past is my asset. man. I mean, like, I've had a past, and my duty and my purpose, today is to try to share that past with others, and to realize, I still am going to be human in the process, but I've learned, and I've, shared it myself, and others have shared it with me. Feelings are not facts, Kathleen.
Oh, yeah. Feelings are not facts.
Yes. And I sometimes believe that for myself, and I sometimes it's reality. It seems like reality, but it's not. We don't have to go through life feeling the way we feel. And I remember I walked into a room one time and someone says, there is a solution, Kathleen. You never have to feel the way you feel anymore. There's miracles to be had. There's a solution to be given. And I'm grateful for that man when I walked into that room. And throughout the years, I've witnessed people sharing their experiences. And this one very powerful experience to me that happened in a room, this lady could see my emotions that day, and she pulled out a card, and she's part of this compassion project called You Matter. And she said, Kathleen, I want you to have this. And she handed over a red card, and on it said, You Matter. And I can't tell you how powerful that experience was for that day. And, I share that message, but I also have 500 of those You Matter cards. And I try to hand that out, and I try to, pass what she passed on to me. It's all just, I don't know. It's just, I've had moments of that in my life, and moments of people helping me get through certain things in my life without having to pick up another drink.
Yeah. Oh
So.
my gosh. Those resources are invaluable, right? People as resources, people as support. There was just you've dropped a lot of golden one-liners. I wish I could have just written them all out. This last one, there was one in particular I wanted to reflect back, in which you said, recognizing your humanity, the importance of recognizing you are human. You need to feel your feelings. Feelings are not facts. They're not, right? What I will often share, even here on the podcast often, is emotion is an energy that must be expressed. It's just an energy. It can't be created or destroyed. It already lives in you. It's just potential right now until something clicks it, and there it is. It's that type of energy. What's your funnel? What's going to be the way that you handle that and get it out so that you can keep moving forward with your life without being emotionally hijacked? It's just that thank you so much for sharing your story, your experience. There's so many more questions. I know we're already at time and I've got to wrap up this episode, but there's so many questions that we could explore on, that closure piece, on being able to complete parts of your tapestry, right? The tapestry of your life, or the canvas of your life, right? That feels like it's blank, right? How do we gain that? I don't know how many people come from a lineage where they don't know, right, their background, and it feels like they're bereft, right? Like it was taken from us. There's an absence there, right? And so that's one piece that you hit on right at the beginning, right? The reality of, if we don't tell our story and we sit with it, it becomes this monster in the closet, right? When we have things that we're hiding, this monster in the closet. You saying just share your past, share your story, right? You did it with counselors. Some people do it with friends. Some people do it in groups. Some people do it journaling privately. Whatever it takes to lean into, to own your story, folks out there, right? This is your human life. Own it to the degree that you can. Don't let it own you.
Yes, that's good.
Okay. I was supposed to be like, what are our takeaways? Did we set out to grapple a hard conversation? Blah, 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 all the things. Yes, we did. I am happy to hear from you now. How did we transform hard conversation into teachable moment for this? And if you're like, Nina, we covered that, then I want to hear what your internal weather is like.
My internal weather. Oh gosh. It's feeling sunny. It's feeling sunny out. You know, I know in the beginning I said I was kind of in between sunny and dark and dreary, but I think for me is I've owned up to my story, and I really want to inspire others, and I feel inspired by talking about my experience, and that's where I'm at, you know, and I've always felt that way, you know, within the last couple of years.
Oh, I love the way you tagged that right within the last couple of years. Y'all, it's a journey. We want progress, not perfection, right?
No destination, right? It's a
all
journey.
about the journey. Kathleen, thank you so much for being with us. Rolling the ball on over to you. Where can people reach you if they want to reach out?
Of course. Well, I have LinkedIn under Kathleen Bossart, Bossart, Kathleen. I also have Instagram. I think I'm Kathleen Bossart on that.
We'll
I do
find
have
these things and put
Twitter.
them in the show notes too. What was that last one?
Twitter as well. Just search up my name. And those are the main ones that I have social media wise.
Okay. And you are working on film script for this moving forward, your story, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay.
I'm working on a feature film. I'm currently on about scene 7. I have about 100 more pages to go.
Sending you energy as you move forward in your journey. Also, just the kudos to creatively processing this, right? Being willing to create it through the film, through the writing of it. Oh my gosh, there's so many people out there who can benefit from continuing to creatively process their story. You are a testament to it. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Oh, folks, I am still in my feels over here. I promise I will go deal with my feelings after I finish recording this. But that is what we planned for today, folks. So thank you so much for being willing to explore your triggers as a human being, especially today with me and Kathleen. If today's episode has been helpful for you, the best things you can do, one of two things: share the episode, tell somebody, heard this great episode, I think you need to hear it. Send them the link, because that's how we get the dialogue going. That's how we share the stories. That's how we transform the hard conversation into teachable moments, right? So that's one way. But let's say you're like, Nina, I got to let more people know this was a 5-star episode. Fantastic. Go put that 5-star review, but specifically tell people which episode you heard. Right? If it was gold for you, it's going to be gold for someone else. People need to hear these stories. So thank you for sharing again, Kathleen, and for everyone out there who's going to share. That is officially what we've planned for today. So with all the things and the goodies that we've given you, my invitation is to otherwise continue to stay curious.